Welcome to BUFC Corner, the official Biggleswade United podcast. On our first edition, we are joined by Chairman Chris Lewis. How are you today, Chris?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Good to see you.
Right?
Lovely. You guys get cold in this changing room, but
Yeah,
looking forward to doing this. And should be an interesting podcast, I reckon.
Let's hope so.
I just want to take you back before you had anything to do with Biggleswade. How did you sort of get involved with the club?
Initially, I was actually here at the start of the 13-14 season as the club's physio. A friend of mine was a coach who had previously been involved in the club, had sort of moved away and done other things, but then was coming back in to get involved with the club. He knew the then chairman who sort of invited him to come back and what have you, and I knew this particular guy, and he said, "Oh, you know, when you come down, it will be a good laugh." I wasn't really doing a huge amount of sports-based stuff at the time. I'd just done the Olympics the year before, but he said, "Why don't you come down and get involved and all the rest of it, have a few beers after the game, it'll be fun." Okay, yeah, maybe not. So he sort of twisted my arm, and then unfortunately, after I'd committed, his mum had got ill, but he had ended up having to pull out. So after all that arm twisting, he ended up pulling out and leaving me in the lurch with the team that I'd never heard of. And yeah, it basically started with that, and the club had brought in a new management setup at the time in Mick Riordan and Mark Royal. I joined them, and then midway through that season ended up slotting in as chairman for various different reasons, which is a bit of a strange step up. But yeah, that's effectively how I got started. So it was a bit of a strange reason to get involved in a club that you'd never heard of, and you live sort of 45 minutes drive away. But yeah, it's been alright so far. So yeah, it was a good move.
Would you say that you said you became chairman relatively quickly? Were you very surprised that you sort of...
I mean, I was surprised when the opportunity came up, because various different things had happened in and around the months around Christmas. The chairman at the time wasn't necessarily overly happy. He was thinking about going. There was a bit of an internal sort of conversation between himself and the manager at the time. He ended up having a bit of an argument with the manager. The manager decided to walk out. Our club secretary felt that the chairman had overstepped the mark. She had a word with him, and as Tracy does, if anyone knows, if you've ever met Tracy, she's been here at 30 odd years. When Tracy speaks, things tend to happen. She put her foot down, and the chairman left. And I basically stepped in. I mean, at the time I was running my own business, and had been speaking to Tracy about different things we could maybe do at the club to raise a bit of extra funds or do different initiatives. And we basically had a bit of a conversation, and my head was sort of in that space at that particular time. And she said, "Look, do you want to, I've got a few ideas, do you want to maybe step in and give us a bit of a hand?" And it's gone on 4.5 years now since that time when I sort of came on board. I think it was January 2014 that I sort of stepped in. Unfortunately, the board at the time felt that it would be a good appointment, probably because there was no one else to take up the position, so it was out of desperation, I guess. But yeah, that's how it came about. So it's a bit of an odd one, but yeah, it's been a good decision. I mean, the club has certainly moved forward during this time, so not all of that is obviously down to me, but it's nice to be part of it.
You mentioned the club moving forward. How has it changed since you first came into the club?
It's a real drastic change. I mean, Biggleswade was the same as really every other club, and not to sound big-headed, but we have made strides that does structurally at least set us apart from other clubs in and around sort of the level that we're at. We don't pretend to be anything bigger and better than what we are, and we're certainly very aware that we are in the 5th tier of English non-league football, but we do have certain things in place which do set us apart. And when I came on board, there was a youth setup, as it were, but it had moved away from the club. The chairman at the time felt that there was no point having a youth setup, so they split. The relationship with them wasn't particularly good, and when we decided to bring Guillaume on board as our director of football, one of the primary things that we spoke about was obviously building the structure of the club and the academy. And because we don't, despite what people may think, we don't have a huge amount of finance to go throwing around and just buy in all the best players and pay them stupid wages. The ethos of the club is very much about developing from within, which is why we invest a lot of time in our coaches and we help our academy coaches to develop. So it was one of those things whereby we wanted to develop those players from within and have the youth setup. So when I started, we didn't have any youth setup. We've now got an academy of 13 teams, which we're adding teams to every season. We've got a good relationship with Stevenage FC. They run a community academy setup effectively that we operate with them. Our head coach, Christian Colas, basically is the head coach for that. We now have a media department and you guys from UTFB helping us, and we've got a dedicated business team. We've got people like Jordan doing the media work for us. We've got we've now got a significant following on Twitter. I think when we first came in we had 1,500. We now got like over 40. I think in total across all our platforms. Now we've got YouTube as well. I mean, what's that up to? It's probably got to be 60,000 or something like that across all our social media platforms. We didn't have anything like that. We've now got Guillaume Balaguer, who most people know of, our director of football, who works for Sky Sports. We've got him on board. We've got Top 11, our fantastic sponsors, our shirt sponsors, who support us really, really well. They give us finance obviously for the shirt sponsorship to help us to do what they do, to do what we do, but they're really supportive and they really want to help grow non-league football and make an impact into what is known as sort of grassroots football. So there's so many different things that are going for us now with the live streaming that we're doing online. Our sort of home matches and all the rest of it are streamed on YouTube live, which I don't think anyone else is doing. So we're trying to sort of, I suppose as much as anything, provide a platform and set an avenue or a pathway whereby if you want to develop a football club at this level, it doesn't have to be about money. There are other ways that you can go about doing that, and obviously we're trying to generate the money off all the things that we're doing, but there's lots of different avenues that you can develop a club, and if we can do it, anyone can really. You just got to have the will to do it, and you've got to have, I suppose as much as anything, a little bit of creativity to think outside the box. So the club has developed hugely. I'm sure in the coming weeks when you speak to other people at the club and speak to probably Guillaume at some point, he'll be able to tell you about all the various different things that we're doing and explain it a lot more eloquently than I can. But yeah, things are moving along well.
You mentioned that the club has moved on since you've come in, and where do you see it in say 5-10 years progressing towards that? What are your aims and what do you want to see the club do?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because ideally I'd love us to be winning the league every season and moving up, but realistically that's not going to happen because, again, unless we develop massive finance from somewhere, having the money to be able to get the type of players that you need to have that success. I mean, Salford City have done a fantastic job, obviously a couple of divisions up in non-league, but they've had the budget to do it, and they've invested their money well, to be fair, and they've built, they developed the stadium and the ground and all the rest of it, and they're going great guns. But if you don't have that, it's very difficult to have that sort of success. So things with us might work a bit slower. Our under 18s and our under 16s and those sort of age groups in the academy are coming on really, really strong, and it won't be long before they're really pushing into the first team to allow the club to progress up to that next level and challenge the existing players that we've got. So as much as I would love to see the club winning year on year, realistically you've got to take a step back and be a little bit philosophical about it. I mean, I would like to be, in 5 years' time, be 1 or 2 divisions up. We've got to get out of this division sooner or later. We can't stay in this division forever, but it is a really hard division to get out of because you're at that level whereby you've got players that are good, that have dropped down from professional academies and want to make it in the game, and then you've got other players locally that are talented players, but they maybe don't have the commitment or the desire to go up that next level. So you've got a real mishmash of different types of personalities. So trying to form a squad that are all pushing in the same direction is difficult. And again, if you don't have the money to do that, to incentivise them, then you have to try and find other ways. So it can be a real challenge at this level. So moving up the divisions is certainly not going to be easy, but if we want to get to where we want to get to, I mean, I would like us to be, in the Football League, and then after that reassess and see where we go from that. But there are lots of different things we need to do to get there. We need to develop the ground. This ground will probably take us maybe one division up. If we want to go further than that, we're going to need a new ground, or we're going to have to find some way of expanding it, which is difficult because you've got the cricket club next door and we don't want to encroach on their land, and there isn't a huge amount of land available in Biggleswade to really expand onto, because a lot obviously gets taken up by housing, as many clubs in many different towns across the country will testify to. So things like that are obviously a restriction, but yeah, within the next 5 years I'd like to at least be one division up, at least pushing to be in that second division, so going up into the Southern League Division 1, which is where we would go up to more than likely, although the FA are putting in a Midlands League for next season, so there might be, depending on the boundaries, there might be a case of moving up into that. But yeah, at least 1 or 2 divisions up. In 10 years, got to be pushing towards the National League. 15 years, Football League. But again, a lot can happen, and all of a sudden someone within the club could win the Euro Millions, and we have like 40-50 million to spend. So you just don't know. You have to be at this level. It's much more difficult to plan out because you're not professional. So actually putting together realistic business plans and revenue streams and stuff like that is difficult, because finance at this level is so much more difficult to come by. And companies obviously are a lot smaller, so they're probably a bit more unstable, maybe don't have the money year on year to be able to put into clubs and stuff like that, so it is a challenge.
You touched on social media and how strong Biggleswade are. When you started being chairman, is that something you set out to do?
Yeah, I mean, when I started out, one of the first things I wanted to do was obviously build the social media channels. One of the first things I said was I would love to be able to stream games live on the internet. It's taken us about 4 years to get to that point, but it's here, and that was very much my vision as soon as I came in. I mean, in September, I spoke at SoccerX in Manchester and did a talk about non-league football, along with Guillaume was chairing it, and there were some other individuals from other clubs. Olivier Bernard, who used to play for Newcastle, was actually a chairman up in Durham, and he was there, and it was really interesting speaking to him, having come down from the professional game, and hearing his thoughts on non-league football and actually running a club and all that sort of stuff was really, really good. But yeah, the digital side of things was something that I really wanted to build on, because ultimately the world is ever only going to go increasingly more digital, and I said at SoccerX that the clubs that don't embrace that now will eventually die a death, because it's one of those things that, particularly at this level, increasing numbers of clubs and the actual leagues themselves are run by increasingly older people, and there isn't that younger generation that are coming through with the will or the desire to take those roles on. So if you don't find a way of diversifying the club and attracting a new audience, or a new volunteer base of people that want to get involved, if you're quite a reclusive club and you just do things by the traditional means that have been done for the last 20 or 30 years, sooner or later you're probably going to fall apart, and you've got to embrace that side of things. And that's something that I think, whether it's just me just being younger than the average chairman, I mean, I was like 29 when I took over, I'm now only 33, but it's one of those things whereby maybe that side of things, because I'm a bit younger, I look at things slightly differently, I don't know. But if you don't look at the trends that are going on socially and run a football club to mirror that, then I think you're going to be left in a situation sooner or later that's going to be a detriment to the club. So it's one of those things that we definitely need to look at, building that digital scope. There's 8 or so billion people in the world. If you're just trying to market the club to the one man and his dog that comes along on a Saturday, then because you're a local club and you're not professional, and you don't have all the big local and regional and national players coming and playing at your ground, you have to find a way of engaging people. And because the world is so big and the majority of people now are online, it makes sense to try and build up that community wider afield than just having it, on a local base. So that was something we definitely looked at. Unfortunately, everyone seems to have really bought into it. Everyone's seemingly liked what we're doing. People tune in regularly. We've got a decent number of people on YouTube as subscribers now. I think we've only been running it since the start of December, and we're up to like about 18,000 subscribers or whatever number it is. So, and particularly with Top 11, being able to do things like that to engage their fans, because these are guys that obviously love the game and they love football generally. So to be able to provide that sort of experience, and a lot of these people are abroad in far-flung countries that have heard about us through Top 11. We get requests for merchandise and stuff from people in all sorts of manner of sort of South American and African and Asian countries, and I think we got a shirt request from someone in Nicaragua. I mean, where does that come from? But it's crazy, and it just shows that there is the hunger out there for it, and there are a lot of people that they love the Premier League, they love English football, and are probably intrigued to know what is the lower levels of English football like. And fortunately, in this country, we've got such a big pyramid, we've got such a big base of leagues and football clubs. I mean, we're the 9th tier of English football, and actually the football is not bad. I mean, if you get some good games, I mean, some of the football we play here is fantastic. When we're playing well, or we're sort of on form, and it just shows that actually the breadth of football in this country is very good, and because of that interest in English football, people do pay attention. So you've got to maximise and try to capitalise on that, and you're just doing yourself a disservice if you don't. So that's definitely something that I looked at doing when we came in. Unfortunately, it's doing all right so far. There's still a lot of things that we need to do, but it's for the time that we've been doing it, I think we've shown that it can be done. It's been a relative success so far.
And the first team coach, Christian, he was a manager in the 2nd division of Spain, if I'm not mistaken.
He's been in a few different places.
Yeah.
I think he was at Sabadell, which is not too far from Barcelona. So he was there. He's coached in Finland. He's obviously come here. He's coached in a number of different clubs and a number of different environments, which for us to get access to that is fantastic, because you don't often find the type of coaches that coach at this level. They're not often as culturally enriched as Christian is. I mean, to be able to sort of coach in all these different countries, you just don't really get that. You get people that are committed local coaches and all the rest of it, and they want to get involved, and some of them are very good, and they've got certain ways of playing football, and they can be very effective. But there is a certain element whereby having that experience coming from coaching lots of different countries definitely does bring a different dynamic to the club.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have Christian as manager, as you said. How important were you shocked when he sort of agreed, given his experience, and I guess he may have had options otherwhere for teams who may be above?
I wasn't, purely for the fact that when you work with Guillaume Balaguer, nothing comes as a shock. It's honestly, it's crazy. I mean, he went out to Barcelona the other week. There was a report in the local paper. There was an article in there. He had a meeting with Valverde. He's obviously the head coach of Barca, and we got a picture of him holding the shirt and all the rest of it. And they had a conversation about the club, and you'd be surprised actually how much these stars, whether it's coaches or footballers from the elite game, are really interested to find out about Biggleswade. I mean, every time Guillaume meets up with people like Guardiola, he's always like, how's Biggleswade getting on? You're like, what the hell? Why does Guardiola care about Biggleswade? But it's because of that relationship. So when Guillaume said, oh yeah, by the way, we've got the opportunity to bring on a UEFA Pro licensed coach, which is like the highest qualification you can get at this level. You don't get that. Yeah. I mean, you have maybe FA, you get like FA level 1s, level 2s, the occasional UEFA B coach. You don't get really UEFA A licence, you certainly don't get UEFA Pro licence. I mean, we're fortunate that we've got 2 UEFA Pro licensed coaches at the club, which is ridiculous. But it's one of those things whereby when you work with people like Guillaume, anything really does become a possibility. And he'd interviewed some fantastic candidates for the role, because he's very thorough in the type of person that he wants, the qualifications that they have, what they can bring to the club, what style of football they want to bring. Does that fit in with the ethos? Because ultimately our academy and our under-23s on our first team, the ethos is for them to all play the same way, and it's very much a case whereby the academy, our head of academy, Fran Constancio, he's a UEFA Pro licensed coach as well, and it's very much a case where him and Christian are working towards, you know, a long-term goal of having these players coming through playing a certain way. So it's effectively on a much smaller scale replicating what you have at La Masia. It's that sort of concept. Obviously we don't have anywhere near the facilities or the breadth of players or you know, even we've got some very good qualified coaches, but we won't have anywhere near what they've got there, but the concept and the philosophy is very much the same. So yeah, when Guillaume said, oh, we can get this coach, it was just like, fantastic. If you think we can get him, bring him down. I mean, some of the people that he interviewed and told me their backgrounds, I was just like, why would they be interested in Biggleswade? But Guillaume has that way of being able to enthuse people and get them involved in a project that otherwise they wouldn't have considered. So it was a shock, and at the same point it sort of wasn't, because you sort of know what can happen and what he's shown to be possible in these last 3-4 years exceeds, you know, initially what I thought was going to be possible. So yeah, it was fantastic to be able to bring Christian. I mean, his qualifications are fantastic. His manner is really, really good. He's very easy to work with. He's a brilliant coach, and as and when, you know, he decides to leave Biggleswade, whenever that may be, I mean, he's not going to be here for the rest of time, as none of us are. So wherever he goes, I'm sure he'll be a brilliant success, because what he's imparted to the players and getting them to think differently about the game is really impressive. That so many of the players, that the ones who want to be here are here because ultimately they love that element that the club provides, that sort of coaching element that they, quite honestly, you can't get that anywhere else. We've had a number of players move on to other clubs, and we've heard that they've been, you know, they've moved away because they've been offered money, but they've said actually it's nothing like being here, because the professionalism that people like Christian and Stuart, are you know, assistant coach, bring, and the sort of the fitness coaches and the physios and all those sorts of people, they all bring a real strong element of professionalism and taking the work that they do to that next level that, you know, not a lot of clubs will be able to sort of match that in terms of the depth that they go into. We've had players come from other clubs saying, you know, you've got like 4 physios here. Like, what's going on there? I mean, we've never had a physio at our other club. Or, you know, we get our fitness coaches like getting sort of pressure sensor mats where the players stand on them. It shows them where the forces are going through their feet and when they're running and jumping, what's going on. And they have GPS vests that, you know, provided by the same company that supply Man City and Barcelona and all the rest of it. And the players are wearing these vests and they're running around, and all of that data gets taken and analysed and sent back, you know, the next week, and is analysed by the coaches, and they run through it with the players. Like, it is as professional as you're physically going to get outside of a professional club. So sometimes it's a case of trying to convince players actually that it's a good thing to do, is because you're probably not going to get it anywhere else. And yes, we may not be able to pay you as much, but you're getting experience here, particularly if you're younger, that you're not going to get in other places, and you will learn a lot more. So if you're aspiring to be, you know, you come out of an academy and you're aspiring to be a professional footballer, actually it's a very good place to be. I mean, there's 2 players that have come through this club, or passed through this club in the last 3 years, that have gone to play professionally. One of them's at Colchester now. He's in the under-23. He's got a pro contract. He's only been there like 3 or 4 months, and he's already the captain, I think, of the under-23s. And he will probably go on and play for the first team very soon if he hasn't already done so. One of the other guys that came through the club, he's playing out in America, playing professionally. There's a couple of other guys that have gone and played in the National League. You know, we have form for having players that can play at a much higher level. So we tend to attract that. But yeah, going back to your question, it's very much one of those things that the type of coaches we can bring in, we look to have that next level, because that's what we believe in. It's just a case of putting all those nuts and bolts together and really trying to put that success on the pitch. But in the last couple of seasons, we've finished higher than we ever have done, and that's been without any real huge financial budget. So hopefully the coaching is working over a period of time.
Given the philosophy you touched on, the ethos, how important was that to sort of set that in place for Biggleswade to achieve success in the next few years?
I think it's one of those things whereby again, because you don't have huge finances, you've got to do something different. You can't just go out and buy success because you don't have the money to do it. So you've got to look at doing things differently. You've got to be willing to try things that haven't been done before. We've had a lot of negative comments and grief from other people involved within, football at this level, basically just saying, what are you doing? It's ridiculous. Who do you think you are doing this and that? But unless you try things, you never know what's going to work. And ultimately, we've tried things at this club way before I was here that, have had relative success and have allowed the club to sort of continue, but I want the club to grow, and everyone here wants the club to push forward and to grow. So unless you're willing to try something different and think outside the box and use the facilities and the resources that you have at your disposal, you've got to allow yourself to have that creativity to try and do different things. So it's definitely one of those elements whereby the philosophy is very much something that we want to use as a way of setting us apart, because there's so many different clubs around here at this sort of level. We're very congested in terms of clubs at this sort of level around this area, and all of them are have their own sort of different marks, and all of them are very similar in lots of ways as well. So if we want to try and set ourselves apart and to try and attract the best players and create an ethos here that people buy into, then we have to do something different. Otherwise we just end up being roughly the same as everyone else, and we want to try and be successful, and we want to try and attract a certain type of player, and in order to do that you need to have some sort of USP that allows that to happen. And one of our main sort of motto here at the club is coaching football, inspiring communities, and the coaching football element is exactly that. We invest a lot of time into the academy and into our coaches and into our players, and we've got a number of players that play for the senior team that have expressed an interest in coaching in the academy, and we've helped them to sort of go on and get that sort of coaching experience and get their coaching badges and give them opportunities to actually coach the academy players, and they love it. And you've got to provide that sort of environment to allow the growth of the club to happen as a whole, because if you don't, then what else are you going to do? You're just going to be the same as everyone else, and you're just going to rely on the same old things that sometimes work and sometimes don't. So we're trying to do things differently, but that philosophy is really important. And Guillaume, when he came into the club, was very much like, this is the philosophy of the club, this is what we want to do. And we sat down and talked about things, and I had my vision and he had his vision, and they were very similar. And it's very much a case of, if you bring someone like that into the club that's got decades of experience working in the football industry and has principles by which he wants to see the game played, and he's got all of these contacts, you don't bring someone like that into the club and then put shackles on them and restrict them. If they've got that, and that's something that we need, and we haven't got anyone else in the club to do that, then it makes sense to give them the freedom to be able to do that. And I hope that's what Guillaume feels that we've allowed him to do. So the philosophy is really important.
As director of football, what is, obviously we'll hopefully have him on one of these podcasts in the future, but just to give a rough outline, what is his role at the club as director of football?
So he's director of football 1, which basically means that he effectively sets the agenda. So he oversees everything football related that goes on in the club, whether that's the first team, the under-23s, or the academy. So he basically sits down with the coaches, with Christian, our head coach, and Fran Constantio, our head of academy, and basically sets the agenda, and this is what we want to achieve, and then gives the coaches the freedom to be able to put that into practice in terms of how does that vision entail, what do we have to go through to actually allow that to come to fruition on the pitch. So then the coaches use their experience to build the various different coaching plans and all the various different things that they do for the year. So but Guillaume basically oversees all of that side of things and sets the agenda and helps to bring in sort of new coaches and new players and use his contacts to open doors and do all those sorts of things. But obviously he's involved in the club in so much more than that. He writes endless articles and promotes the club to anyone that will lend him an ear to listen to it, or even if they don't want to, he's still going to tell them about it anyway. So he does a lot of that. So a lot of, I suppose, brand promotion as much as anything. He's one of our sort of key board members and has, you know, obviously a lot of influential decisions on the board in terms of how we run the club. From a financial perspective, obviously, he helps to bring in finance because the club needs money to run as any club does. So he opens up doors from that perspective as well. And you know, a lot of his contacts, particularly like things like the GPS vest, for example, like I believe that was one of his contacts. You know, when Top 11 came on board, I think it was a tweet that he sent out. I think we put together like a PDF at the time that we were looking for a new sponsor. We had a picture of Maradona holding the shirt saying this could be, you know, you could have this space on this shirt in the future. And I think he put that out advertising, and through that, you know, Top 11 obviously saw that and saw the pictures that he was posting out of all these famous people holding the Biggleswade United shirt. I thought, you know what, great, you know, great to be able to work with the club at that level and help to promote grassroots football and also get some great brand promotion. So, you know, obviously he's got, you know, 1 million or so followers on Twitter and has now got his YouTube stuff that's doing really well, and Facebook and all the rest of it. So he's got a massive reach in terms of all of the types of people that view his posts and what have you. So, you know, he's more than just a director of football. I mean, he's an absolute pillar of this club, and you know, I hope he's here for many years to come, because he's certainly had an immense amount of influence in shaping this club. He's more than just a director of football. He's one of the central pillars of this club. So, you know, hopefully he'll be here for a very long period of time.
Moving on to kind of match day situations in general, how does a match day operate at the club?
So we tend to, a number of us get here sort of early. I'm normally here by sort of 11:30, 12-ish. You've got other members of staff that are here probably slightly earlier than that, maybe sort of from about 10:30, 11 o'clock, so they open up the clubhouse, bring in the food for obviously the players to have after, because they'll have a sort of post-match meal, the home and away team and all the rest of it, so that needs to be provided. So either that's cooked on the day or the day before, depending on what they're having. So that comes in. You've got people that come and obviously open up the ground, organise the sort of car parking outside, set up the PA system and all the rest of it for the announcements and things during the course of the game. You know, you've got people that work the bar, that has to be opened up, the change rooms. As you can see, the things have been put up here for tomorrow's game, so that all gets done in advance. And then it's a case of, you know, people like myself and the other committee members welcoming the opposition committee members and making sure that they're looked after, and the referees and all those sorts of things, and just being a voice and an ear for the fans as well. The great thing about football at this level is that you can interact so much more readily with the fans, and the fans with the players, and the fans with the committee and all the rest of it, and they can get a much better understanding about everything that goes on here at the club. So there's a lot of that sort of thing, interfacing with those sorts of people and giving them an update about what's going on, and how the club is doing, and, you know, just getting their thoughts on how they see the club. We try to reach out as much as we can to basically say to people, that particularly those that come to the ground, you know, what is it we can be doing better, what is it that you like, what is it that you don't like, what can we do to make your experience more enjoyable, and if you're not around on days to be able to speak to these people face to face, then it makes it a fruitless task, because if you can't get that information, then you can't improve as a club. So there's lots of different things that go on. We're generally done here by about 6-ish, something like that, or at least the players probably move away around about 6 o'clock-ish. We're often here cleaning up, particularly Tracy and Heather and David and Jeff and Steve and a load of the other guys that help run the things that are here till goodness knows what time, cleaning up, and if there's a function on here at the club afterwards, if there's a party or something like that, and they might be here till like 1 o'clock in the morning or midnight doing stuff on the bar and cleaning and all the rest of it. So yeah, it can be, sometimes you get people here from like 10 o'clock in the morning all the way through to like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, just slaving away, doing it voluntarily. So yeah, it does take it. At this level, you'd be surprised how much effort it does take to run a club. It can take a full 35-40 hour week on top of what you're already doing in your existing job. I mean, people like Tracy have been here for 33 years or something. Like, I mean, yeah, she deserves a damehood or something for the service that she's given to football. But yeah, she's here most nights of the week, either opening up or doing something at the club or hosting some sort of meeting. And when we have hiring out the clubhouse, she's normally the one sort of helping to organise that. So yeah, it takes a lot of effort, and it's one of those things whereby when you've put all of that effort, you just hope the players turn up, and if they win, they win. If they lose, they lose. But you just hope that they put in a good effort during the course of the week, because it can be very easy, I think, to sometimes take all of that for granted when you've put a lot of effort in during the course of the week and worked really hard to make their experience as positive as possible. So when you see them not putting the effort in, it can get frustrating. But you have to take that, all in and realise that they're working during the course of the day as we are, and they've probably been working in the office or on a building site and are knackered and come here at like 6 o'clock when it's or 6:30 when it's an evening game kicking off at 7:45. They don't finish until 9:30. They probably get home about 10:30, 11 o'clock. Probably can't get to sleep because they're still buzzing from winning 3-2 in the last minute, and then don't get to sleep and you've got to get up for work the next day. So it's just what non-league football's like. It's a bit of a circus, but yeah, it can be really labour and time intensive just because you have to work on your regular jobs and do all of this on the side. So it takes a lot of effort.
Regarding match days, sorry, have you got any? Obviously, players usually have pre-match rituals. As a chairman, do you do anything sort of special before the game?
No, not particularly. No, not really. I just crack on. No, I just crack on and do what and do what's required. So yeah, I certainly don't have any things. What was it? I think Paul Ince used to always put his left sock on first, or whatever it was. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, players and coaches and all the rest sometimes have those rituals. Just crack on and do whatever's required. I don't really get involved in much of that, but maybe some of the players do. At the end of the day, some players will use those sorts of things if they've been playing particularly well and they've been in a particular routine and it helps them get in the zone. All the rest of it, fine, crack on. But yeah, I don't have so much of that. I just get on and do what's required. No.
And tomorrow, first home game in nearly a month, I think it is, 10th of February, the last one, 10th of March tomorrow. 1-6-0 the last home game, so what are we hoping for from tomorrow's game against True?
It'll be a difficult one because we don't have a good record against True. I don't think they're doing particularly well in the league this season. I think they've done well in the Cups. They did well, I think, in the FA Vars and some of the sort of league domestic competitions. But in the league, for whatever reason, I don't think they've been doing particularly well of late. So it'll be an interesting one. But yeah, we don't have, particularly their place, we don't have a particularly good record at all. It's one of those places we always seem to lose. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, when we play well, as we've shown this season, we can beat anyone in this league. But when we don't play well, we really struggle. That's one of the things that is a little bit frustrating, that we blow a bit hot and cold. And I think once we get that consistency sorted and we can maintain a good performance level, then I have no doubt that we'll be challenging for the title. It has been gradually getting there, but it has been a bit of a slow burn. So goodness knows tomorrow. I mean, we could end up winning 5-0. We could end up losing 5-0. We could draw 0-0. I have no idea. We do tend to raise our game, which is a good thing. We raise our game for the teams that are higher up the table. I think as much as anything because we like to play football. So when we play against teams that are maybe more capable and like to get the ball down, we can really compete and we tend to do very well. But when you're playing against teams that are maybe down the bottom of the league and things aren't going for them and they're using every tactic in the book to try and win the game is a bit broken up and it's a bit disjointed and there isn't that natural flow and rhythm, we tend to struggle a little bit. And whether that's because we're maybe not imposing ourselves on the other team enough, who knows? But yeah, we'll have to wait and see tomorrow. I honestly couldn't call it. I'll probably get it wrong even if it did. So, yeah.
Do you have much interaction with the players then during the week, out on match days, and
not a massive amount during the week unless they've got any specific requests? Because I tend to do things like work with one of our sponsors, the One Glove company. They produce goalkeeping gloves. We've got a sponsorship deal with them, and the our goalkeepers get, you know, a certain consignment of gloves as part of that sponsorship deal. So I tend to sort of intercede between that company. So as and when they sort of are running low on gloves, they'll sort of give me a shout and I'll have a word with them. But word with the company rather. But apart from that, I don't have a massive amount of contact with them during the course of the week. I don't have a massive amount of contact with the coaches really during the week. That's just left to Guillaume and the other people that deal with that sort of stuff. I just let them crack on. I don't really impose myself upon them. It's normally them contacting me requesting something rather than the other way around. But yeah, I mean, obviously speak to them on match days, but yeah, I don't tend to have a huge amount of sort of personal interaction with the players other than just discussing what, you know, how the game's been, or, you know, whether they've got any sort of particular issues or anything like that need sort of urgent work done to resolve it. But yeah, we get on perfectly well, but certainly sort of don't go out for a beer with them during the week or anything like that. So yeah.
Right, well, thank you very much for talking with us. It's
Brilliant.
been an honour.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a great
first one.
show.
Yeah, good.
Hopefully have many more successful as this, and thank you for tuning in to BUFC Corner on this very first episode, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.